This is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch horror movies and tell you why they suck. I'm Ashley Atkins, and I had a really good interview today for a job. Very excited about.
I'm Carter Rhodes, but let's just say I'm never going to drink from one of the more popular beer companies whose name rhymes with Banheiser-Usch. So this week, another very special episode. We are joined by my friend, Bobby McLaughlin.
Hello.
Yes, some of Bobby's qualifications. Would you like to, or I can?
Yeah, sure. Local pretentious art snob. Actually did study film at UMass Amherst. Got a film studies certificate there. Joe would say, I feel actually no, anyone would probably say that I am absolutely have no authority on any form of horror, seeing as how Joe pointed this out to me because I was so blindly associated these two franchises where I thought I had seen Scream. And I was talking to Joe about it, and I was like, "Oh, do you remember this one scene in Scream?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And then I start describing it further and further, and he's like, "Bobby, you're thinking about Scary Movie."
Okay.
For what it's worth, those Scary Movie intentionally frames itself like Scream.
Yeah.
Confusing a movie and a parody of the movie isn't as bad as I thought you were gonna say Friday the 13th.
I also was thinking it was gonna be
I was thinking that one scene, I forget if it's Scary Movie 1 or Scary Movie 2, where it's right at the end where the guy has a shovel and he cocks it like a shotgun. And I was like, man, do you remember that part of Scream? That was so funny.
So some other qualifications. I believe you're president of the fencing team. Is that right?
I mean, not anymore.
Right, you were. You were the 8-time electee of the UMass fencing team. And you're an architect.
True. Architect is a strong word. I studied architecture. Yes. I am currently not employed as an architect.
But you also built some of the finest escape rooms in Boston. Is that right?
That is very true. I've yet to actually be to one before.
Well, you lived it, so you don't need to. You had to escape it every day after work.
I was thinking about that because the theme of the escape room that I worked on was hot dog themed.
You didn't tell me that. You told me Egyptian themed.
Well, no. That one of the puzzles includes a sarcophagi.
Sarcophagus, I believe, is singular.
But other than that, I think it's supposed to be like a museum, and it's also like a hot dog themed museum. It's either that or it's framing that hot dogs were important throughout all cultures because there's all these different parts to it, and they all have hot dogs in them.
Since the dawn of time, man has been grinding up meat and pig anuses and stuffing it into pig's intestines and eating it across every culture. So before we get into it, I do just want to point out that if we can agree that a hot dog, by definition, is ground meat inside of some kind of animal intestines, can we agree on that?
I mean, you can do synthetic linings, can't you?
I was gonna say, I thought they usually.
Okay, but let's say if it is animal, you would say that's a hot dog then. If it is ground meat inside of an animal thing,
I feel like you're trying to get me in a gotcha moment.
No, I'm just saying
I would say yes.
Okay, perfect. When you eat a hot dog, you yourself become a hot dog. Because you are now full of you have
I will not
animal intestines encasing ground meat at that point.
Couldn't you say that about eating any form of meat then?
Yes. But it's less interesting to be when you eat a hamburger, you become a hot dog.
I mean, we're just going back to human donut theory.
Oh God.
Yeah, are you familiar with human donut theory?
No.
Okay, so it's pretty simple.
Is this the topic we want to be delving in at the podcast?
All right, we'll get moving.
This is kind of going along the
topologically, humans are most similar to a donut.
No elaboration.
Yeah.
I may explore that later.
I remember Joe said it to me, and I understood topology from mathematics, and it just clicked. He didn't need to elaborate. I was like, damn, yeah.
I mean, does it even work on a topological level? I mean, humans have multiple holes.
Yeah, you're right.
They're just thinking of the main hole.
Yeah, that's fair. You could rearrange it in a number of ways. Okay, one last off-topic thing. Are you guys familiar with the crab theory of evolution?
Oh yeah,
I love that.
What carcinization?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
The idea is on a long enough timeline, everything. If you try to create the perfect organism, it becomes a crab. You're like, okay, so how do I make the perfect organism? So it can be on land and water. Let's give it an exoskeleton. And yeah, it's a crab. So we're a little bit late on the uptake here, but this week we've invited Bobby to cover Raw. Raw is a French, 2016 horror movie. And Ashley is going to tell us the plot, but first, we're just going to give you a quick rundown of how this works. First, one of us, this week is Ashley, is going to give us a plot summary. Next, we're going to give you some fun facts about the movie. Definitely going to be facts, probably going to be fun. We're going to break down the movie in the good, the bad, and the spooky, give you some overall thoughts, the Joseph DeStasio Memorial Line highlight, and then we'll tell you what movie we're watching next week.
I do have a recommendation for the Joseph DeStasio Memorial highlight quote. If I imagine you already picked one out.
I'll go around and see what your suggestions are when we give it.
Okay, I have a feeling it might be the same one.
Might be.
It's a pretty funny quote.
Very likely we've all chosen the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. So the movie opens up on an empty road where, well, not really empty because someone's walking on it, but there are no cars. And then as a car approaches, this person who is walking kind of goes off to the side. And then right as they get close, they jump out, causing the car to swerve and hit a tree. And they kind of lie down in the road, but we see them get up. And then it cuts to Justine and her family. Justine is a lifelong vegetarian, and she's off to her first year of vet school. It's the same school where her sister goes and where her parents met. There she is hazed by elder students, including her sister, and is forced to eat raw rabbit kidney. And she develops a rash that the nurse diagnoses as food poisoning, and she starts to crave meat. One night, while hanging out with her sister...
Even raw meat.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we do get a scene where she eats raw chicken out of the fridge, out of the package.
Directly out of the package.
Honestly, in some instances, more disgusting than when she eats people.
Yeah, honestly.
Because it's more relatable.
It's just the food equivalent of me hungover in my underwear at 2 a.m. just sucking down a Gatorade in the cold light of the fridge.
Yes. Exactly.
It even has the moment where your roommate catches you doing it and you feel a little embarrassed.
Yeah.
So one night she's hanging out with her sister, and her sister is giving her a bikini wax.
Yeah, because I guess French people do that. But she was wearing her underwear because it would be lewd otherwise.
So the wax though gets stuck, and she grabs some scissors, which I don't understand.
Some big ass scissors.
Yeah.
Some big scissors.
To try and cut it off her, and Justine freaks out, and she's like, "You're gonna cut me!" Like,
Justine and Alex are the main characters.
Yes. She's like, "You're gonna cut me," and Alex is like, "No, it's gonna be fine," as her hand's like shaking as she approaches, and Justine kicks her. But, a pair of giant scissors can do a lot, and it does. It cuts off her finger, and she faints. But she wakes up to see Justine eating the finger like a little chicken wing gremlin. I should say like a gremlin eating a chicken wing. Yes. But they tell their parents that the dog ate it. And
then they have to put the dog down.
Which was sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then Alex texted Justine like, LOL, they put the dog down.
Mom's so upset.
I couldn't tell I couldn't tell the tone of that text because it seems like she didn't care, even though she was clearly the one that was looking after the dog.
Yeah.
She did not care at all about that dog.
It was under my assumption that since it's revealed later in the movie that Alex also commonly practices cannibalism, that the dog was like an excuse for if anything goes wrong.
Oh, maybe.
No, I didn't even pick up on that.
I
yeah.
didn't think of that either.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. But yeah, they had to put the dog down because once an animal gets a taste of human flesh, they're unpredictable. Or uncontrollable. I don't know what it was.
The dad says that as if they're like wild animals.
Yeah. So then Alexia tries to teach Justine how to eat people by using the jumping in front of a car trick that we saw from the opening. And Justine is like, nuh-uh. She watches Alex just try and eat someone's brain.
Yeah, she like chows down on like their scalp.
Yeah, that's
It's
the part
not
that always
where I
gets
would be
me. She
biting.
goes like, I feel like if, of all the desirable parts to eat, of not even just a human, just a living animal, I wouldn't want to start where it's hairy.
Yeah. But and like also there's very little meat on
Yeah.
that. You can't sink your teeth really into someone's skull. Like arms, legs, back, you could bite out chunks, but not like their scalp.
Right. She went for a really weird spot, and Justine's so appalled she walks away.
Yeah.
But then that night she goes to a party where she's forced to go to the bathroom and hook up with a guy, and they start kissing.
It's like they cover her in blue paint and him in yellow paint, and they're like, "Don't come out till you're both green."
Yeah.
In like what an old person thinks college parties are like.
Yeah, it was weird.
It just screams UTI to me.
But they start kissing, and then she bites his lip off, and everyone's like,
Who's
Gotta
this
go.
weird girl?
yeah.
I think it's a bit more than that. It's like this girl is an absolute freak.
But don't worry, because some people like it. So then she goes back to her room, and her roommate, who revealed himself as gay in the beginning.
Like his second line,
Yeah. He's like, you good? Like, what? Like, kind of like, what was that about? But also like, you good? Like, and they hook up. She loses her virginity to her gay roommate.
And they go out of their way to show him as, like, not just like a mistranslation of, like, they translated gay, but it means in the LGBT spectrum, so he could have been bi, is like, he's shown watching gay porn. He's like, I didn't come out of the closet to fuck girls. It's very clearly gay, but...
Yeah.
I had a lot of thoughts about that I kind of...
It is in my notes if we want to revisit this.
Yeah, we'll revisit it. At this point, Justine starts to unravel, and she goes to another party where she drinks a ton and gets trashed. And then her sister taunts her with a corpse in the morgue, and everyone just like watches and someone videotapes it. And her roommate is nice enough to show it to her the next day, and she freaks out. And her and Alex get into a physical fight where they both just end it by biting each other and hanging on for a little bit.
Honestly, one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah.
I just was like, what? So then they go back to Justine's room where they both kind of like tend to each other's wounds. And then Justine leaves Alex in her room and she goes to sleep with her roommate. And she wakes up the next morning and he's dead. Alex had woken up in the middle of the night and kind of chewed his leg down to the bone.
Stabbed him with a ski pole and
Yes.
then ate it.
I love the symbolism of that too, because, you know, the very first night when the hazing starts, you know, Adrian and Justine are in their room together, and, you know, Adrian gives Justine the ski pole, saying, like, here, like, defend yourself with this.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, ultimately, like, he's killed by that same ski pole.
Yeah.
And then Alex ends up arrested and Justine goes home. And Justine's father reveals that their mother also suffers from the same condition. And he is covered in scars from bite marks and has a lip scar as well.
His lip scar, it was definitely made to look like it was a reconstructed cleft palate.
Yeah.
So it wasn't noticeable until he pointed it out that it was their first kiss.
Yep.
And that's it.
All right. So I assembled a list of facts and realized moments ago that I didn't list a single actor or director involved because I just did the thing where I'm like, I don't recognize that. So it was directed and written by Julia Ducournau. Definitely butchered.
I was looking this up because I wanted to pronounce it correctly, and I still am not entirely convinced that I can. But like the O-U-R-N, when I looked it up, was like pronounced with like a G almost. Like it was like du cogno. And I was like,
That makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds right. Du Colno. It stars Garance Marlier as Justine, Ella Rumpf as Alex, and that's essentially it. They've both been in primarily French movies that I don't recognize. They mean nothing to me. So, so some fun facts that will appeal to you whether or not you watch French movies is the raw chicken that Justine eats out of the fridge. It's actually sugar. I guess they somehow...
Oh,
like
yeah.
some sort of like gelatin or
I guess
something
so.
like
They
that.
didn't explain how they did it, but
Yeah.
she...
Very convincing.
Yeah.
She did say that the scene didn't put her off of chicken, but it did put her off of candy.
That's pretty funny.
That's so weird because like it even like stretches like
Yeah.
raw meat.
Yeah.
I can see
It
it.
was
I've-
high quality. So the Julia Ducournau wanted the actress who played Justine to work on her body and posture, and you can definitely notice throughout the movie that her posture and body change quite a bit as her character transforms. I actually do mention that in my good. The premiere in Los Angeles had custom-made vomit bags in case it was too gory.
I love that.
There's a scene in which Justine is dancing in front of a mirror listening to some really wild music. The band is called the Ordies, and it's a band made up of two twin sisters who write their songs by rapping about men the same way that male rappers write about women.
I loved it.
And they're like, it was pretty good. It's like, the only thing men are good for is dick. I'd fuck a corpse. I'd fuck a corpse.
I've listened to that whole album that track is on. I love the Ortiz.
Yeah. So the movie is very interesting. They have a lot of rhymes, like they're doing a whole hazing thing where everyone's singing, and they take the time to make sure that like you can hear the rhyming in French, but the subtitles also rhyme in
Yeah.
English. With this, they just said fuck it. They're like, there's no way we can make this rhyme, and it's just like horrifying, nonsensical, just like I said, I'd fuck a corpse. I'd fuck a corpse.
I can understand that part because, you know, for the rhymes that they're making in the movie, they're creating them so they can create their own English interpretations. For the, like, sourced songs, you know, I feel like it's a
meant
bit
to
weird
be, to
to, like,
to in French.
Yeah.
to translate someone else's work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get it, but I just think it's entertaining. So, fun fact, the director has rejected it when people have said that this is a horror movie. She said she wanted to disturb, not scare, and she
So
views
it's-
it as a mix of comedy, drama, a teen movie, and body horror. I would agree with all of those. I wouldn't agree with comedy being first, but
Ashley, you look very skeptical about the comedy aspect.
it was the director. Take it up with her. I'm just saying what she said.
I'm just surprised that she considered it comedy. I didn't find it funny. I don't know.
And Bobby, you'll like this. This movie was one of Hideo Kojima's
Oh my
favorite
God.
films of 2018.
Honestly, that totally does track.
This movie didn't come out in 2018. It came out in
Wait,
2016.
you said 2018?
Yeah.
Maybe he just saw it in 2018. He's like, man, this is the best movie I've seen all year.
After fucking murdering Shinzo Abe, he goes and catches Raw in theaters. And he's like, yo, this movie's awesome.
It is like just the right amount of pretentious for Hideo Kojima.
The Shinzo Abe thing was Kojima, right? Or am I thinking of the other Japanese developer?
What are you talking about?
There was some running joke where like the guy who killed Shinzo Abe looked kind of
Like Hideo Kojima?
kind of like him in that like he was a Japanese man with glasses and shaggy dark hair, and like the
I
running
don't think I heard about
the
that.
running joke is he went to see a movie just on his own, and he came out
That
and
was
it's
his
like
alibi?
and it was like wanted. He's like, what? There's reason to believe it's the Sonic 2 movie. Anyway, so I don't know about you guys, but I am ready to get into the good, the bad, and the spooky.
Who wants to kick us off with
The good, dun dun dun. I'd love to start.
perfect?
First of all, Garance Marillier, I'm probably butchering the last name, was an incredible actress choice. She was, I mean, great acting aside, just physically, she was pretty, not like, I don't know, whenever I see, what's her name, that really pretty girl, Chloe something.
That one really pretty girl.
Chloe something.
Chloe something.
Moretz?
Yeah.
Yes,
Chloe Grace Moretz or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
Anyway,
yes,
whenever
yes.
she's in movies, she's like always way too gorgeous, and I'm like, what are you doing in high school? She was like a pretty but not like just gorgeous woman at a vet school. She had very shy body language throughout the movie. She was very, very skinny, which I felt added to the implication that she was a little malnourished. I thought that was pretty clever all around.
I also think they did a really good job of stylizing her. They didn't put her in any makeup, so she didn't look too pretty. When she first got there, her clothes were really simple, so she stuck out. But then only ended in like this one dress for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Which was a pretty garbage dress, too.
It was basic. Well, yeah, because it was
It was
cast
the
off
one
from
dress that her older sister would give her.
Right, yeah, exactly. It was like cast off from her sister she didn't want. So it makes sense. But she would wear it with like jeans. At one point she wore it.
Well, the first time we see her in it, it's like over her lab coat.
On a more general level, one of the things I enjoyed the most about this movie is thematically it was very interesting. Mm-hmm. The number one thing I picked up on was that it was a very lonely movie. They ride the bus, and they're pretty much the only two people on the bus. There's a lot of wide open shots of campus and fields where there's one or maybe two characters. She's literally dropped off at the veterinary school in an empty parking lot. And then she goes to walk towards a staircase. Her parents didn't even drop her off there. They dropped her off in the center to really emphasize how alone she was.
There are many shots in the movies where, like you're saying, it's like intentionally sparse. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of the few moments where we ever see more than like a couple people in a room is during like the party scenes where there's, massive amount of people. They're packed like sardines.
Yeah. And even then, the audio like mutes itself a little bit. And so even when she's surrounded by people, she's isolated. It's interesting.
And the way the camera tracks her, it's like bobbing and weaving all the other people as if they're like environmental aspects and not other human beings.
Yeah. Another theme about this movie is they compare lust and hunger quite a bit. There's a scene either before or after she hooks up with Adrian where he's exercising and it's unclear if she wants to eat him or have sex with him.
The soccer scene?
Yeah. The giving her sister a Brazilian led to her eating her sister's finger. She's literally biting him during sex. And the name of the movie itself, Raw, is essentially a pun.
Yeah.
It can be sexual or culinary.
I thought there were some really good shots throughout the movie, such as the opening scene. I really liked where the camera was positioned for that. Also, there was just a shot of a stuffed animal, like, hung on a cord during one of the parties.
A lamb, specifically.
Yes.
A symbol of innocence.
Yes, I really liked that. And then there was a shot of, like, one of the horses running, just, like, in a black room, and I thought that was also really good. I liked the kind of shadow play they used. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but in the beginning, very early in the movie, she's ordering food at a cafeteria, and they give her, like, mashed potatoes, and the woman doesn't ask no meat. She says no protein. It frames it in a way that makes her vegetarianism feel unnatural.
Yes.
Yeah.
They compare humans and animals quite a bit. Like, there's literally a scene where they compare do monkeys process trauma a similar way. They're like, at one point I believe Justine literally says it's the same, humans and animals, like it's the same thing.
And then of course everyone gets mad at her because they don't agree. She's the odd one out.
She, like, during the hazing thing, there were scenes where they would act like animals. They were eating raw meat, they were crawling on all fours. Stuff like that.
Well, going back to the horse scene that you were talking about, Ashley,
Yeah.
I really like that. I mean, it's really quick. It's kind of like a blink and you'll miss it scene, but it's one of the few scenes that's in the movie that's like abstract almost.
Yeah.
Because like there's that one.
The dog scene.
The dog corpse being revealed. But I like the horse scene because it immediately follows the first time she eats meat on the screen. And very deliberately showing kind of a horse going from a trot to a gallop.
Yep.
And it's almost as if it's communicating. It's like, oh, things are revving up. You know, she's gained like a taste for meat. And she like this is where things are going to start to develop from here on out.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that, but yeah. I also really liked some of the special effects that they had, or the physical effects. The rash that she got was so good. I thought, and then the way the skin was peeling.
When they're peeling.
Oh
yeah.
When the nurse takes it off with like a forceps.
Yeah. I thought that was really good.
The leg scene where you see bites out of his leg.
Really
It's
good.
it's like, you know, there's a chunk missing, but you can see tendons.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The changes in muscles and the
fat
bone
distribution.
Exactly. It was very well done.
All across the board, absolutely amazing makeup and practical effects. There's only one part where I didn't really fall for the illusion, and it's when Alexia bites her on the cheek.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then later, it's clearly just like they slap some color on the cheek to make it look like a scab.
Honestly, I thought the kind of scarring was more convincing than the actual open wound
I
itself.
thought so too. I really liked the father's reveal of all his scars on his chest.
Oh yeah, because he even specifically says, you know, we haven't found a cure, but it's clear that, you know, like this is their way of treatment, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Is just tiny little bits and pieces of him being bitten off one at a time.
Yeah. Like, the movie is basically a parody of France. Every character is constantly like smoking and looking wistfully into the night sky. Even the doctor treats her, like asks
Immediately lights up.
asks if she's having protected sex, and then starts smoking a cigarette. And I was like, if this was black and white, this couldn't get any more French.
I did feel like there was a lot of smoking.
Yeah. And like a lot, and then whenever they smoked, it was very like wistful wisdom. He's
dramatic.
like, whatever you do, don't have two girls. Finish this. And he walks off.
I thought that scene was funny because we never see Justine smoke in the movie. Well, no, we do see her smoke with Adrian actually.
That was weed. Though.
Yeah, it was definitely weed, but like we never see her smoke like a cigarette. And when her dad asks if she smokes, she's just like, "Yes, give it to me."
I like that there's ketamine in the movie.
There is ketamine in the movie. Yes.
Ketamine.
You know,
great.
interestingly enough, I looked this up. But that scene, I was surprised. I was waiting for it in your fun facts, honestly, because that was a scene that was performed by, you know, you would hope, actual veterinarians. And Ducogneau actually like contacted a local veterinary school, or maybe just the vet's office. And this was a procedure that was already going to happen. And she was able to get the film crew and the actors there to like be in the shot while it was happening.
Wow.
It was pretty fascinating. I expected more advanced medicine, but now that I think about
it's
it,
just ketamine.
I couldn't do any better. Is they injected the horse with horse tranquilizer. They had like 5 people push it against a wall, so when it like went down, it didn't collapse. They could slowly control it. Just hooked the horse's hooves up to this thing and just fucking carried it around.
It's very unsettling.
Yeah,
I can see why they did that.
And, you know, I've always appreciated the ambiguity of that scene, you know, because they put the horse under, and then immediately after that scene is where they pour the blood on all the students.
Yeah.
So you're kind of thinking, like, did they just kill the horse just for all that blood?
Yeah. That's a good point.
And it's never shown, so you just kind of, like, if you like, connect it to, you're like, oh, is that the connotation?
Yeah. So while we're on the topic of things that, like, people already had planned for movies... You know, in Apocalypse Now, the scene in which they kill the water buffalo.
I've actually never seen Apocalypse Now.
me either.
You might not like it as much. You definitely would, Bobby.
It's been on my list for a very long time.
It's essentially just not Heart of Darkness. Yeah, right? Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness.
I don't know. For someone who studied film, I've seen very little of the biggest films.
It's a book about this guy.
Oh, it's a book.
Oh, yeah, look,
I'm just ignorant then.
Going down the Congo River, coming across all these like quote unquote savage things. It's a racist book.
Yeah.
But like he kind of just starts going insane the deeper he goes, and the metaphor is like the deeper into the jungle, the more savage everything is. So Apocalypse Now is kind of like that, and the movie culminates in them slaughtering a water buffalo. Fun fact: that was actually. Real villagers were planning on sacrificing a water buffalo.
Really?
Yeah, and the guy was like, "Can I film it?" And so that's really them killing a water buffalo.
That's the opposite of shooting the rodeo.
Yeah,
you know, the rodeo was in town, but hell, did the rodeo add to the movie?
Yeah, I don't even know if he originally planned to have that scene in. But yes, the horses in the movie were on ketamine.
What was that? I forgot we restarted on that one.
There's a really good observation about the blood right afterwards. I didn't even pick up on that.
I think I only noticed it on like my second viewing.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you seen it?
Like 3, maybe 4 times.
I've seen it about.
It's one of my favorite movies, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen it a couple. I saw it in the horror class I was in college.
Yeah, because we took the same horror class just at different times, right?
Yeah, you had it with Shastri, right?
No.
Okay, maybe.
I forget who I had it with.
Yeah, well, either way, I recommend that course if you ever find yourself
really
at UMass. The attention to detail in this movie was really good. Like the scene in which she finds the same skin cream that she's been using for her rash in her sister's room. When she's stressed, she's like literally eating her hair. In a symbolic kind of like...
I have the hair scene in my good.
Yeah, it's really quite good. And then my personal favorite is they really do show the sister as being unsupportive on like such a micro level. When she was changing, she holds out her hand to try to balance on her sister, and her sister won't even...
Slaps it away.
Yeah, and so it really does... I guess it ties into the loneliness. It stresses that her sister gives her the most bare bones of explanations of that she's a cannibal and needs to eat.
I love the relationship between Alexia and Justine. It's really well written. They gain like a certain understanding of each other towards the end of the film.
When they're I did like when they're both latched onto each other, chewing on each other's arms in like a fight. All you can see are their eyes, but you can definitely tell that they like soften towards each other.
Yeah.
They definitely have some kind of an understanding during that fight.
Well, because, I mean, that's like kind of the peak of like where all of like the anger and frustration they have towards each other, you know, comes to a front. And,
comes
you know,
to a head.
They have their fight in the courtyard and, you know, they're biting into one another. And like you're saying, they're staring right into one another's eyes. And, you know, at the beginning, you know, they're kind of like yelling and like almost like growling at each other. But then once they're both latched onto each other's arms, they're just kind of staring, panting.
Yeah.
And like, you know, they kind of come to an understanding. I was thinking about this before because there's so many points in this movie just on the concept of like, you know, what makes cannibalism scary. Because there's kind of like the existentialist part of, you know, humans are on the top of the food chain, but the only thing that kind of defeats them is other humans. And, you know, that's just terrifying on the level that, you know, you are a threat or you are being threatened by, you know, the people around you. And during that scene, you know, everyone's kind of like rooting on them. Like, you know, cause, you know, it's a fight, you know, people love to watch a fight.
It's
then it
awesome.
kind of, it kind of dawns on them what's happening. You know, they're like biting into each other. And all of a sudden the audience gets kind of scared.
Yeah.
And they start to retreat. And that's when Alexia and Justine kind of, you know, begin to realize while they're staring into each other that, you know, it's kind of like us against the world, you know, and that's kind of when they like team up, you know, they kind of grab their arms around each other and they both get out of there. And that's when they start patching up each other's wounds.
Yeah, you're right. It ties back into the whole humans and animals comparison when they were latched onto each other, because I've seen dogs do that, where they kind of latch on and they just kind of look at each other and they're like, okay, We got an understanding. No one's letting go. They stop thrashing and trying to like rip at each other. They're like, we're good.
Speaking of like the dog comparison too, you know, one of the things that you hear, you know, about if you're getting attacked by a dog, you always want to give them your arm if they're going to bite anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of the same thing where they both kind of give them each other their arms.
Yeah, that's true.
It also kind of mirrors the scene where Justine is hooking up with the roommate and she bites her own arm. And
Because she tried and failed to bite him.
Yeah.
And she gives up. Yeah.
Essentially every sex position there is. It's like they kept shifting and she kept biting him. God, that must have been weird. I mean, that ties... Yeah, that must have been weird from his point of view. It's like...
As the actor, the character.
The character just catching your sexy French vet roommate gobbling down raw chicken. You tell her you're gay, she still hooks up with you, and then like tries to eat you. That must have been a stressful experience for him.
Well, I think, you know, at like during the sex scene, I think he's like, oh, this is like some like S&M stuff that she's into. But then like, you know, he realizes that like she's like really biting down on her own arm. And then you see him get like really uncomfortable.
Yeah. When she was attempting to bite him, from an outsider's perspective, it did look like a passionate sex scene.
Right.
It was...
And then
this
you
movie
see
did a
him
lot comparing sex.
slowly get a little bit more uncomfortable as she's doing it. It was really good.
Like the fact that they go on essentially a date just to go and eat meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really interesting how they compared food and sex.
Yeah.
I was reading a bit about Ducogneau's intentions as well, and this is when I also read the same thing that you were talking about, where you know she doesn't consider it a horror film, but you know, like one of her big inspirations was, you know, like desire, and you know, it's kind of easy to compare, you know, hunger as a desire and lust as a desire. But one of the other things she was interested in was kind of like bodily weakness. And, you know, because desire can be framed as like a weakness of the body. Even like the horse scene when it's getting put down under ketamine, you know, like that's like a weakness. Like you can't control that.
Yeah.
You know, no matter like how strong of a person you are, you can be built like a literal horse. Like this external thing can drop you. And it's, you know, kind of framing desire as almost this like unstoppable force.
I think I'm out of good. I did quite like the symmetry of it taking place at a school while she is learning that she's a cannibal.
Yeah.
That was some nice poetry.
Yeah. At its core, it is like a loss of innocence story. And, you know, school is a very typical place for something like that to happen. But, you know, of course, she's going to a veterinary school.
Yeah.
That's kind of infused with, like, bodily anatomy. And, of course, you know, she's realizing she's a cannibal.
Yeah.
I only had two other things under my good. One of them, which even on my first viewing, I loved, which is the score. The score is, in my opinion, the score makes the movie. And on that topic of, you know, loss of innocence, much of the score is very, like, you know, childlike and playful. You know, it has that guitar, often plays like in like low moments when she's alone.
Definitely in the scene where she was eating the finger.
Oh, yeah.
It was very childlike then.
And then, of course, it's like it's juxtaposed even in that same finger scene by this like intense organ, you know, classically horror-related instrument that, you know, comes in so strongly at and highlights moments of like frustration, you know, desire to feed, and the finger scene, the music in the finger scene, it blew me away the first time I saw the movie. And I was listening to the score during work the other day in preparation for watching it, and like one of my favorite parts. It's such a crazy score to just sit there and listen to, because you can kind of tell when every scene is, even though a lot of the music throughout the movie is kind of the same melodies, kind of just shifted around. But like I was sitting there and I was just working, and then the finger scene came on, and I was like, yes. I love that scene.
You know that Quentin Tarantino says that he picks the score for his movies before he writes the plot. So that, and then he matches the tone of the movie to
it's like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Maybe?
Well, all of the songs for that movie were written before the movie was produced.
Right, but Roald Dahl wrote that before those
Well, yeah, but
songs for the most part, right?
there was no songs in the book. The book
yeah.
wasn't a musical.
I guess so, yeah. well, wait a minute, though. Doesn't every movie have songs that were created before the movie was made?
I mean, like
by definition, you can't they're not gonna have Lady Gaga in Schindler's List.
I suppose that's true.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
I tried to think of it literally was just recent singer, old movie, and that was what my brain created. There's no significance to those movies except they didn't. Lady Gaga's career did not begin when Schindler's List came out.
Speaking of Lady Gaga,
it should have.
Are you ready to move on to the bad?
I'm ready. You guys?
So I'm gonna kick us off.
There's one thing
yeah.
I've left to say about the good, and it's in regards to the hair scene that you were talking about before.
Yeah.
Because I am not like a squeamish person, but man, you know, she, like you were saying, she kind of habitually eats her hair when she's nervous, and there's a scene
specifically after she eats meat and becomes a cannibal.
Yep.
So in a very literal way, she's eating the human body.
I wrote that down. It's the first human thing that she eats that isn't meat. So it kind of, it gets the ball rolling. Mm-hmm. But there's the scene afterwards where, of course, humans aren't cats. We don't produce hairballs. So she's like vomiting up all of like the hair that she was like chewing on. And it's like, it's way more than is realistically possible. Like she's like it's like a clown with like handkerchiefs. Like she keeps pulling out hair, and oh my god, watching that, like it's one of the few times where I'm watching a movie where I have to like shield my face because like I can't keep looking at it because like I was like gagging, and this is like the third time I've seen this movie, and watching it, it's like, oh, I still want to throw up.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
In this movie where I had to look away, and I'm pretty good with like gore, but that was one of them.
My one complaint is just that it went on a little too long,
See,
and it
I
started to feel like the clown thing. Is if it was like a little bit shorter, just long enough to be uncanny, that would have been perfect. But when she's like, at a certain point, I'm like, okay, a lot of hair. Let's keep this moving.
I'm with Bobby though. That's what made it so unsettling.
It's because it just keeps going on.
Yeah. It really is like, it's like, oh, gross.
Okay.
Oh, it's
still gross.
damn. This.
But also followed up by a girl in the bathroom being like, 2 fingers will make it better. I was like.
There's some graffiti on the wall of a woman's anatomy, and then a rough translation of a French phrase, which means feed your kitten. In this context, it's pretty clearly pussy. But I was talking to Kate, who's fluent in French. I'm like, yeah, it translates to like feed your cat. What is that? And I'm just like trying to make her say it. And I'm like, but like,
I don't get it.
Yeah,
Kate, what
like,
does it mean?
Feed like a command? Why are you telling someone to feed your cat? I guess it's a veterinary school.
What it's really about is your pet's dietary health.
Yes. Make sure you feed your cats, everyone. All right, are we ready to talk about the bed?
Yes, yep. I want to start.
Wait a minute, we got pause. The bed. So before we begin, I don't know if you'll cut this or not, but yesterday I was at a fancy dinner with my dad, his girlfriend, and her son. Mm-hmm. And there's a menu, and it's like steak, beef Wellington. And her son goes, why is like, what's the difference between beef and steak? And I go, oh, that's interesting. So steak, and I start to talk about how it's from when the William the Conqueror invaded. He's French, and so the system of government then was French speaking. So the upper class, the cuts of meat like steak are from French or Latin origins, and beef is from German, the peasant cuts. Same with.
That's why it's called like filet mignon.
Yeah, same with ham versus pork, mutton versus lamb, stuff like that.
I feel like you've told me this before.
Yep. And then you can see that in government too, like parliament legislation. It's all, Latin, but
yeah.
because of French. So I start saying that, and I go, well, see, it's when William the Conqueror, my dad goes, it's just like the podcast, interrupting me. And I just do this. Just like, why was this the thought that escaped your brain?
Because you said this exact fact on the podcast.
Yeah, but why do you feel the need to be like, it's the podcast? I was like, it's just a fun fact that I got interrupted with.
All right, so I want to start with the bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I feel way stupid because I missed all of these stupid themes, and I looked it up afterwards, and I was like, oh, makes a lot of sense, okay, but I struggled. And I will say, I did not know you guys both watched this movie for a film class. I would have.
Yeah. I told you.
You said bring your A game. I did bring my A game. I watched it and made diligent notes. That doesn't mean A game versus we studied this for film class is two very different things.
Did you say bring your A game? Because I am a little art snob.
Yeah, I didn't say because of why, because I feel like I've said before, I thought I'd say it with you that when Bobby comes on, it's going to be the pretentious snob episode.
Yeah, you did, but still, but if I had known you guys had studied this for class, it's a whole different level. I'm pissed because I would have watched it 4 times to keep up with your 4 times.
For what it's worth, I at least saw it in a pretty intro class, so they didn't have any analysis more in depth than what we're getting into.
I wanted to look for one of my papers that I wrote on it. But I forgot I no longer have my student email, and that's now lost to the ether. Well, it's entirely my fault because I knew it was going to get deleted after a certain amount of time.
You don't keep it active.
Yeah, and I was like, I should really take all the stuff and put it on my other Google Drive, and I never did. And I just kept telling myself I would.
See, anyways, though, I missed a lot of the themes when watching it, and I was explaining to Bobby during the break. It took me from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. to watch this movie.
5 hours, Ashley.
To be fair, I took a 2-hour break, but
took a 2-hour nap.
That's still 3 hours to watch an hour 40-minute movie.
Listen, it took a lot of work. I had to pause, make notes. I had to go back.
That's fair. The fact that it's French means that you
can't listen to it in the background.
Yeah, you can't look down to write your notes.
Right. So it was a little frustrating for me, and also with my inability to pay attention, it was also a struggle. I'd look away and be like, I've missed 20 minutes. But that being said, I was just so bored watching this movie. And so also didn't want to acknowledge these themes because I recognized a lot of the moments you talked about and knew they were important and they're in my initial notes, but they were not important to me.
This is like when I showed my brother Disco Elysium, and I'm like, oh, this is a game you have to play, knowing that it was kind of outside of his wheelhouse. And then when he finished it, and he's like, Bobby, I didn't get it. And I was like, oh, now I just feel bad. Now I feel like a pretentious asshole.
Right.
Don't feel bad. It's in line with myself. I just...
But Bobby, did you ever get around to seeing Glass Onion?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I still haven't seen the first one. But
That's fine. If you saw Glass Onion, that's okay.
I know it's in a bubble.
Yeah. So I watched it with my sister, and she's just like, that was dumb. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you, Maddie. That was a good movie.
Yeah.
I got Glass Onion. Yeah. I proud myself on that one.
I was like, I just feel shitty showing it to you now if you didn't appreciate it, because it reflects on you.
Well, I felt really bad about it for when I showed Disco Elysium to my brother, because I was like, oh, this is, one of my favorite video games of all time. This is an art masterpiece. It's so beyond so many of the other video games I've played. And when he gets it, and he's like, I didn't get it. And
it's Black Ops.
Now I look like a dick for making I don't know.
So one of my biggest issues with this movie was that the cold open was so literal. There was no it didn't hint at anything it showed exactly what would happen, which was someone ran in front of a car and made them crash to kill them. We weren't just watching a random car crash and wondering what happened there.
Yeah.
Is we saw the person run in front of them.
We knew it was intentional.
Yeah, and then we see it later in the movie, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It reveals nothing to us.
That's
I
true.
think-
It barely even recontextualizes it.
I think the one thing it does kind of show us is that, of course, at the beginning of the movie, we don't know it's Alexia. Mm-hmm. Once it's revealed to be Alexia, we know that she's a cannibal. But honestly, I actually put it in my spooky because it shows that, like, she is a practiced killer. You know,
Yeah.
she's done this before, and she knows the formula on how to do it. She knows the places where it works, and she knows how to, like, get away with it.
I will say another one of my notes though is that her formula is pretty garbage.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
not
like,
very sustainable.
It is
Sprinting in
not.
front of a car and having them swerve into a nearby tree.
There's
And
only
die.
so many times the police can find cars with bodies that are eaten before people start, asking the big questions.
But hopefully, like, if they just swerve the other way and keep driving, it's like, well, that didn't work.
I keep
If they
thinking
crash
that.
and survive because the airbags went off, because this is not like the Autobahn is like they're going pretty fast, but it's not like instant death if your car hits
Wait,
something.
the woman in the second crash, she breathed. She
Yeah,
was alive.
yeah, she was alive, but barely. But like, I can't imagine that it's consistently people are dead or basically dead.
Yeah.
Also-
the one thing I can say about the first shot when it happens in the cold open is it's very clearly on a road lined with trees on both sides.
Yeah.
But that's not even true in the second time they do it. They kind of just, if I remember correctly, go into a ditch.
Yeah, they kind of find a little place to hide out.
Yeah.
I liked the opening shot, like I said before, but I mainly liked it for kind of some of the cinematic things they did. I just liked how abrupt it was.
Carter looks unconvinced.
They
we have
could have
different
done it.
opinions.
They could have
It's
done
okay.
it in another way, like a point of view from inside of the car, maybe, where the woman. It's unclear if she sprinted out in front or was just in front of the car. My complaint is just that it was very transparent about what happened. There was no mystery.
Yeah, there was no. The only mystery was who is it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not.
And, like,
it's very
even-
clear it was intentional.
Yeah, even with the context of the movie, you can make an educated guess and be like, yeah, it's probably to eat them.
Yeah.
Like, the why
Maybe
the
was...
fact
some
that you are
people
going to
can.
see a movie about cannibalism.
Yeah, even the why was pretty obvious. It's just like the who.
Maybe some people understood the why right away. Others take a little bit longer to get there.
Another complaint I had was that, and this might be a little unfair to, demand American-style plots on non-American movies, but it kind of just didn't build up to much. It was kind of, she went through a bunch of things and then the movie was over. There really wasn't a
Yeah.
climax.
Well, the climax was them biting each other.
Yeah, you can say what the, like, on paper what the climax should have been, but there wasn't really any build up
didn't
to
feel like
it,
a build at
and
all,
it didn't
no.
feel like the culmination of anything.
Yeah.
It was like, yes, technically that was the climax of the movie, but that's not what I'm saying.
Right. I hear you. I'm not defending it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just...
Yeah, I do understand what you're getting at. I do personally like the structure of it, but I'm also an advocate for oddly structured movies. From an American perspective, that is. Because there is kind of like inconsistent peaks and valleys throughout the film, like the finger scene's a peak, the biting each other is a peak, the reveal of Adrian is a peak. But even that is on a come down. I do kind of love movies and stories in general where nothing happens.
Yeah.
I'm a big nothing happens kind of guy.
Yeah. And I guess I wouldn't have minded if this was more traditionally like French, of just people had sex, smoked cigarettes, and died, and that was the movie. But it was kind of too American to just be like, oh yeah, it's a French movie. It's weird. It was like it followed the structure of the traditional plot too much to just write it off.
Yeah.
I found it to be boring. I'm with Carter on this.
I didn't know. Don't you dare try to put me in that corner. I never said it was boring. I said I was dissatisfied with how the plot didn't build up to anything. I was invested the entire time.
Okay, well,
We are not the same.
I will say the one parts where, if I was to say that the movie kind of lost my interest in some parts, it is, it is like the school parts,
Yeah.
which I mean is kind of like the premise of the movie in many ways.
Yeah.
The entire location it's at a school, but like, when her and Adrian are taking a test, or when she's getting kind of chewed out by her professor.
That had no reason to be in the movie.
It was unrelated.
It wasn't even like a part of her downward spiral. Is just he started yelling at her, and then the movie continued.
And then she blames him. She says, like, no, he cheated off of
And nothing
me.
happened.
Nothing, like, I don't know, either the teacher didn't rat on Adrian and he just got away with it, or B, like, he just didn't retaliate against her for telling on him.
Yeah.
Like,
I did quite like that professor's logic, which is that he doesn't hate average students who cheat because it's like basically
It's out of desperation.
It's a survival thing. It's time back to the people being animals, but
it's a cool perspective.
yeah, but like the A students who cheat already are discouraging perfectly capable people.
yeah.
And they still feel the need to be even better and discourage more people. And that's very greedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, you know what? I wasn't a bad person for cheating.
I was simply the little guy fighting for my life out here at school.
Yeah. At one point I was taking a math test and someone was cheating off of me, and they ended up like, the teacher told them, like, you can go home. I'm going to take this up with the dean. He goes, I think I've been more than fair. I told you 3 times not to look at anyone else's paper. He goes, we're going to have a hearing for academic dishonesty, but you can go home. And I was like, he said it right outside the room with the door open, so everyone heard. And I was like, man, this kid must have been fighting for his life if he was copying off of me. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just like, damn, that trickle down of information must have been brutal.
It's like playing a game of telephone.
Yeah, I'm like, but it was like the rung where like someone gets bored and makes something up. That's where I was at, and he was trying to continue playing with that, and I was like, I'm sorry, dude, I'm trying my best out here. I'm sorry to do this to you, Bobby, but one of my bad is the music at times.
Oh, really?
Especially the finger scene is. It was a very tense moment. This was her first time eating human meat. Like, all of her health issues that she'd been experiencing is culminated in this scene that should explain everything. And it's like just this silly childlike music, borderline uplifting. Yeah. And she just starts chowing down on it. And I was like, what? Silence would have been better.
I really just love how Bobby took so long to explain how like this love story to this one particular scene score.
And the whole time was thinking about how I was going to destroy it.
Beautiful.
It's true betrayal.
Yeah. So this might be as a result of me not liking the music, but that finger scene, like I said, is the culmination of her health issues, her like trying to eat meat, but that still doesn't resolve everything. It's implied that like her struggle with sexuality is kind of implicitly baked into this. And this should be the moment of realization. And there just wasn't really any tension to it. And it might have been because of the music, but it was just very clear what she was going to do. They didn't build up for it to be like a horror thing where you know it's going to happen and it does anyway. And that might have been what she was going for with like, she might have been meaning for that to be a funny moment or a teen movie moment.
I guess.
But I think it would have benefited from some horror there.
I have to... Okay, now I say I have to agree with Carter, and...
She always has to.
It's contractual.
You won't
Yeah.
yell at me.
You have to in order to stay on the podcast.
I was gonna say I pay for half of this. I pay for literally just this.
Yeah. In a very literal sense, I could replace Ashley's mic.
But you can't replace my charm.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, like, kind of talking about the finger, the way she kind of goes about it is kind of a little silly. It felt... I guess this might have been intentional. It felt a little childish, and then just she was like, am I gonna do it? Am I gonna do it? This is something I shouldn't have. And then she's like, ooh, I did it. Like, I kind of just was like, okay. Yeah.
She nibbles at it.
Yeah, and then she realizes that she can actually eat it and just freaking goes for it like a little goblin over a chicken wing. And I did enjoy that, but it just was like kind of the buildup of her eating it was like, okay, come on.
You can await my second retort in the spooky section.
Yeah, okay. All right. So at this point we've had opening statements, cross-examination, and now you're going to, what do you call that when you cross-examine your own witness? I think it's examination then cross-examination.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, but anyway, yeah, so we're about to have our cross-examination. I didn't love the ski pole just because it didn't really have much significance.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have a whole lot of strength to it. It's kind of more of a visual thing.
It might have, I don't know, if he was just douchily talking about how he's a skier, that would have been enough for me. But instead it was just any pole they found.
Yeah.
Didn't even show the other pole. We don't even know if he owns a pair or just found it on the side of the road.
I kind of wish even more so if it was just more visible in the dorm room throughout the movie. That would have made it a little bit more visible.
More of a Chekhov's gun.
Yes. Yeah, I would have created at least maybe some tension.
I think I would have liked it if they had like a full kitchen in their dorm and they had like a block of knives or something and someone was always cooking or just some kind of like thematically related thing.
Or even like...
something that has to relate to consumption.
Yeah.
I will say a block of knives would be a little cheesy, I think.
But you see what I'm saying, though. It's thematically
I
cooking and eating. They're related.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that. That was just the first thing off the top of my head.
Yeah, especially since they had raw chicken in their fridge, but it didn't look like they actually had like
That's
a full
very
kitchen.
true. I never thought about
Well,
that.
they probably microwave it.
Microwaves to cook
How are you going to sear
breast?
it? Well, not a whole. You dice it. You put it. You make chicken soup. You dice your chicken breast.
No.
You put it in a bowl of water, and then you microwave it, and you have homemade
stop pretending like
chicken
this is
noodle
something
soup.
you do. You're just making a joke, but pretending it's serious.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. There's some bouillon cubes in the water to turn it to chicken stock. Some macaroni, make it chicken noodle.
I gotta go.
Boiled chicken.
Yeah, boiled chicken
I
noodle.
can't believe I've eaten food here made by Carter.
Boiled by me, yes.
Well, what usually is pasta, so yes.
The greatest trick that Stu has ever played is tricking us into thinking we're not just eating boiled meat. is we act like just because it's boiled in a sauce doesn't make it just boiled meat.
You're
And
not
I'm
wrong.
happy to pretend because it's delicious, but it's essentially you're just boiling beef in a pot.
I love soup though. I could never microwave to cook a soup.
That's why you gotta sear it first, because it looks disgusting otherwise. You have to sure.
It's like if you don't sear it, it comes out like half translucent.
Yeah.
One thing I kind of was annoyed with, all the hazing.
Yep.
And the fact that like the school
I
just
love
kind
the
of
hazing.
Okay, no. I mean I loved it as someone who was in Greek life. Hazing still, it's inherently bad, and I want to hate it. But it's just the fact that the school completely ignored it.
Yeah.
And
it was some aggressive hazing.
it was.
They broke into people's apartments, made them line up at 2
Threw
a.m.
all their stuff outside of the window.
They had to wear these blood-covered scrubs
That
for
alone
a
was-
week, a full week.
The nurse was like, "Why'd you eat the raw meat?" Like,
Yeah.
not even
As
like
if she isn't aware,
right.
It was beyond hazing. Making someone eat rabbit kidney or something, sure. That sounds
Raw,
that's
too.
Yeah, that's a wild thing, but they had so much hazing that at a certain point I was like, it's not that important to me that my face be on, because they said they'll cut your face out of the yearbook or whatever.
I do think I would draw the line at the raw meat, though.
I mean,
If it was just raw meat, I might be like, you know what, fuck it, I'll just swallow it like a pill and that'll be that.
I think it's
guess.
less getting your head cut out of the yearbook picture and more just during your time at school being ostracized by your peers.
Yeah, but if my peers are like, yeah, we're gonna do this kind of hazing thing, I'd be like, okay, you aren't the kind of people I want to...
No.
I don't care about your opinions.
Guess what? If more than one person doesn't go along with it, they will find other people.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be completely alone. And
if the fencing team was like that, I would simply be like, oh, it's not important to me that these people like me. I don't want to be with these people.
Exactly. That's what I don't get about hazing at all. It's like, oh, you don't like this is the worst thing ever. Just leave.
Yeah,
like,
the good hazings I've heard essentially are just like you make a fun story and bond with someone. Like Justin, for example, you can bleep out his name if you want, maybe not. He was at frat and he would tell me about these hazes that he would do, and one of them was GTA 5 had just come out and it was in Florida, and there was this big hurricane and everyone lost power. So what they did was the upperclassmen would control one of the underclassmen with the controller, and they would have them like reenact the game.
that's just a fun time.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like a little bit demeaning, but more than anything, it's a fun story you get, and it's like basically a way to make friends with this new thing. He's like, oh yeah, we would have people, we would have pickup basketball games, and people would have to wear like something on their stomach, and they would have to act as the hoop. The hoop, yeah. So and I was like, that's fun. And they'd be like, and then we'd beat them with broomsticks. And I'm like, come on, you have to know how absurd these two comparisons are.
I will say, I think the one service that the hazing did for the story was, I mean, it was so over the top. It was like a caricature of hazing.
A little bit.
It illustrated the fact, and you guys touched on this, that like the students were the ones running the school.
Yeah, that's true. It also put them in ridiculous situations that kind of heightened the story a little bit.
But it kind of amplified, the common animal analogy that was going on. It was it was like a jungle-like environment.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely did add that.
It served a purpose. I just didn't like it.
I will say I loved the party scenes.
The party scenes were filmed.
I wish I could go to a party like that.
We've thrown some parties like that.
I mean, we put on some parties, but I don't know. I don't think we put on any party like that before.
That's fair.
Like,
Salem
I would
State
love to be at a place like that.
My school is not a party school. It's all residential areas, so if the music was too loud, you had to cut it down.
If anyone knows any parties like that, please invite me.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'll do. If we wanted to throw a party like that, the first thing we had to do is find a smaller house.
We would have to find some like industrial warehouse basement if we wanted to throw a party like that.
Well, you'd need more people.
Yeah, well, I was like, well, we're not going to find more people. It's way easier to find a smaller.
I love Bobby's like, find a bigger place for more people, and you're like, find a smaller place for the people we have.
Yeah. We have a lot of people. It's just physically everyone needs to be closer together.
But if you ask the people you know to invite more people, eventually you will need industrial size.
I feel like with the amount of with the size of friend groups that we have, we could organize something absolutely massive.
Yeah, but I fear that pretty soon we're gonna get into a circular thing of like, everyone ask your friends to invite friends, and then Bobby, you're gonna be like, okay, who do I invite? Carter, Ashley. Okay. And we're kind of in this whole cycle here.
See, though, I have at least like 20 plus girls that I could invite.
How many of those
sorority
are from the sorority? I was gonna say, how many of those are girls that I personally won't be inviting? Because I imagine that number's
all
smaller.
Of them.
If they're from your sorority, it's probably all of them.
But
otherwise, it's probably much smaller.
I think I myself could gather quite a number of people.
All right, would you want to have a raw party? I could do a raw party.
Maybe let's not call it a
Yeah,
raw
we'll
party.
call it something else.
I
But
think we should call it the raw party.
all right, let's have a rarity. All right, we'll get.
I have at least 3 different groups of friends that I could call on to bring other people that they know. Maybe
Okay.
even 4 groups of friends. The branching possibilities are endless.
All right, just careful, because this is how nuclear fission works.
Critical mass will be found.
Yeah. So my last main complaint about this movie, and this is also about a different movie, is France kind of has a weird idea of gay people, which
Yeah.
is specifically Irreversible was the movie I was thinking of, where it's a French movie where they're like, this character is gay, unambiguously gay. He's not bi, he is gay.
Yeah.
And also he has sex with women.
Yeah.
And you're not like, you can be gay and have sex with women. It's just a weird pattern I'm seeing in French movies where they make it clear that this person is not bisexual, but also has sex with women.
How Adrian is written is also in my bad. I don't
Yeah.
love a lot of the ways that he's written, you know, because like you're saying, the movie spends a lot of time making sure that you know he's gay, and then of course,
Ad nauseum.
Oh, yeah.
He's hanging out with her. They're cuddling, smoking weed. She says like, why do you care about my sex life? Are you gonna kiss me? And he goes, no, I'm just curious. She gets up, leaves, and then he goes and watches gay porn. And like the movie's like, do you get it?
it honestly, like you were saying, this could just be like a aspect of French culture, but it does come off as just straight up bi erasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, you know, of course he never says he's bi. He's explicitly described as gay.
Yeah. His own words, like.
Yeah. And the one thing I will give it, you know, that this could be like a misunderstanding on our part, because, you know, the whole movie's about desire. And the one thing that I will give it is in the classroom scene after where she's asking him about it. And I think, I don't remember the quote exactly, but you kind of said it before, where it's like, you know, I haven't been gay my whole life just to have sex with women now. Something along those lines.
He's like, I haven't been in the closet for 20 years just to fuck girls. And he shouts that in like, it's not a lecture hall, it's a classroom. It's like 15 people are there and they just look at him shouting at this girl.
I will say that is the one line where that level of frustration does kind of recontextualize it to me, that he could just be struggling with his sexuality.
Sure, but and that would be something interesting to explore, but the movie had just gone to such lengths to tell me that he was gay that was what frustrated me. If they made it ambiguous, that would have been interesting, because the movie is about sex.
Yeah, well, because of course, you know, the one parallel that can be drawn, maybe not one, there's probably a couple more that I'm not picking up on, but, you know, him possibly struggling with his sexuality and Justine struggling with her desires, just in an opposite manner of cannibalism. But, I mean, ultimately, there are some flaws in how Adrian is written, but the thing that gets me the most, that, like, really puts it in the bad for me, is the fact that, you know, like, the one queer character on screen is the only main character that dies in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't leave a great taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
I agree with that. One thing I didn't like, I maybe it was supposed to be a funny moment. It kind of just annoyed me. Again, the parents' reaction to Alexia losing part of her finger. She like comes out and they're like, "Did you talk about prosthetics? Is she gonna get physical therapy?" And they're like, "No."
He's like, she lost her finger. There's no physical
she didn't
therapy.
completely lose her finger. She lost like
It's like up to the first knuckle.
yeah, like half of her finger, and he's like, "There's no nerve damage. Like, what does she need physical therapy?"
no-
She's like, "She can't eat." I'm like, "She can. She can hold
They
the fort."
wheeled her out in a wheelchair, which was the funniest
She
thing
tried
to
to
me.
get up and walk, and she's like, "Sit down." And it's like, what?
I did.
And then she later ditches the wheelchair completely.
Yeah. I did enjoy that they portrayed the mom as like neurotically overbearing in a way that I didn't watching the movie think like this is a mom who's worried about her daughters being cannibals.
Yeah.
They did a good job of pushing her more towards the line of looking abusive, and so a lot of the logic behind what she was doing was dismissed, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, she does come off as kind of like a helicopter parent. Because, of course, like the parallel to the hospital scene is the first scene, not the first scene, but the scene in the cafeteria where Justine gets the meat in their mashed potatoes, and of course she immediately goes and complains.
I liked that. I thought that was good. But just them fussing with like the most ridiculous things, like for a half a missing finger is really...
You don't think your mom would do that? If I ate part of your finger?
I don't think she'd ask for a prosthetic or physical therapy for me, no. I think she'd be upset and distraught.
I think she'd insist on wheeling you around.
No, she wouldn't. She'd be like, "Get up, you can walk." But she,
it was your finger, not your toe. Get up.
Yeah, no. My mom is definitely conscious and a little overprotective, but she would not wheel me around in a wheelchair for a broken finger as someone who's broken a lot of their fingers.
Bitten off finger.
Bitten off finger.
Quite a difference.
I mean, it's a way of breaking it.
Yeah, I suppose it was broken.
Yeah.
It was cut off, but it was broken before it was cut off, so yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, so you guys ready to talk about the spooky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, the scene where she was eating the finger was one of the spookiest parts to me because she ate it so obsessively.
He's ravenous.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It was like desperate, just tearing flesh off the bone, eating it.
Similar mentality to the sex scene.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of gave me chills with just how much I've seen quite a few cannibal movies, and she really did convey the just like desperate to eat this thing.
My spooky, I have two. First one's the hair vomit. That was just bleh. The second was the opening scene of the person running out from the car. I also forgot to mention that I did not look at the description for this movie before starting it. So I started it, watched that scene, said, "Oh, I need to go get a snack," came back and saw the description on the paused menu and said, "Oh, that's what it's about."
I love the idea of watching the first scene and be like, "Oh, wait, I forgot I'm hungry."
Yeah. I texted Ashley and I go, "It's Raw on Netflix," and I knew that there was Raw, the French movie, and Raw, the Hindi movie, which to the best of my knowledge isn't horror, and I thought I could clarify this, but damn would it be funny. I'm gonna put this in the hands of fate here.
It's like when I suggested Tag.
Yeah.
And I specifically put in parentheses 2015.
Yeah.
Luckily,
Bobby suggested, he goes, Tag 2015 is one of the most fucked up movies I've ever seen. And I just immediately thought of the, like, Jeremy Renner, Charlie Kelly movie in which they're just guys who've been playing tag for, like, 30 years. And I'm like, damn, weird, but he must subscribe to, the Liam philosophy of pitching why Meet the Robinsons is horror with his eyes Ludovico treatmented wide open with the pepper spray on the table.
Hold on. He pitches that Meet the Robinsons is horror.
As a running joke, he said that he's going to show up with the Clockwork Orange eye clamps that keep his eyes open and have us review Meet the Robinsons, so that knowing full well that we're going to pepper spray him at the end.
Okay. I started it. Well, so I also started it, watched that, realized that it was French, and went to go get my snack, simultaneously texting Carter, the French movie, right?
Just making sure. Yeah. Not only...
So it's my...
the French film aspect really does stack onto the pretentious art snob emoji I'm going for.
Did they have English dubs?
Nope.
Because
not that I'm aware.
One of my favorite things is Netflix English dubs. Squid Game is one of the worst I've ever seen, and it gets bad.
Yeah.
1899 was another bad one, and I was like, my sister was watching it because she only watches things in English dubs. Mm-hmm. Like Casa de Papel is like, I'm watching it and it's just terrible acting, and I'm like, this is a non-English one, right? And she goes, yeah, it's Spanish. I was like, yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
I hate that. My dad will do that too.
It's just
I
watch
stopped watching Squid Games because we we were watching it dubbed, and I was like,
It's
yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather not know what they're saying and just have the thing at the bottom tell me what they're saying. Anyway.
A lot of mine we've kind of already touched on, the crash scene you talked about, the hair scene I already talked about. It still makes me gag. But coming back to the finger scene, this is my retort for the finger scene.
Yes.
In the defense of the finger scene.
Well, because like the thing that makes it like spooky to me isn't necessarily her actually eating it. And while I do love the music while it happens, is like the fact that her sister's bleeding out right next to her, and
she's like, oh yeah, 15 minutes, that's fine.
But, but they definitely framed it in a way of like when her sister wakes up, she sits up in frame, like you've been caught. Rather than this is someone you should be taking care of instead of doing this. It was her waking up that framed it as like the bad thing.
Well, because of course, like at that point, you don't know that Alexia is also a cannibal. So like going back and watching it a second time puts much more context in the scene because, when you watch it the first time and, she cries a little, it kind of comes off as like betrayal, like, you're in a moment of weakness. You're actively bleeding.
But classic French betrayal of like a single tear running down their face instead of like, what the fuck? You're eating my finger?
Well, because I think what a second watch reveals, is the kind of understanding that she has. Because like of course, like the first thing is kind of like a frustration and hopelessness that you would feel. There is that betrayal aspect, but then it's like. It's also like the sadness because like she knows that they're predisposed to cannibalism, so there's that like loss of innocence of her sister that I think that she's not crying because of the betrayal. She knows she's crying because her sister's gone off the deep end. And there's no coming back from this.
In a lot of ways, this movie is also about that. Is her sister having sex? Her sister. Doing all of these like loss of innocence hazing rituals.
It's like her sister becoming more like her.
Yeah, and that would have been interesting if they, built off that a little bit more.
I also think too, there's a little bit of sadness that the sister didn't confide in her, that like she was going through this during this time as well. Not that she would have helped her, and that's why she didn't confide in her, but like. The fact that she felt she couldn't, and she kind of realizes that, which is why she then helps her.
Yeah.
As well.
But, of course, because of their relationship, her help is more kind of like, I'm blindly leading you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you do. Gotcha covered.
Yeah. And, there's like the betrayal and the sadness and the loss of innocence from the perspective of Alexia witnessing Justine eat her finger. But I do love, like, when, like, the running up to Justine taking her first bite, of course, like, there's the initial shock, like, my sister just lost her finger, like, this is a medical emergency. And then, like, there's, like, the frustration with, the ambulance and with Quickly. I love how the dog's name is Quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, like, an English translation thing, but...
I think it is an English translation thing.
I'm sure it probably
tell.
comes off... It's probably more similar to something like Bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, there's, like, the frustration and then, like, hopelessness. She sinks into the ground, and then she finds the finger, and then it kind of goes into curiosity. Like, she's, been thinking about this, and now she has the opportunity, and then it kind of leads to, like, the wonder of it, and then it's, like, boom, selfishness, gluttony. Like, she starts digging in, and like you say, and she doesn't let go. Like, as soon as she gets her first bite, like, she's in.
Yeah, and I felt like the music kind of just did a disservice to that. I felt like it oversimplified it.
I don't know.
I got real silly vibes.
I have to disagree.
All right. You've made your point, and I understand why you feel that. We just disagree a little bit. My last two items for spooky is the rash. It's really horrific, especially when they're peeling it off with forceps. And just in general, the movie had really great bodily effects. The one that comes to mind the most was the leg. They
firmly
captured...
in the spooky department.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So some overall thoughts on the movie. What do you think, Bobby?
I mean, I love the movie. I loved it the first time I saw it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've said this before. Like, I fell in love with the soundtrack. I listen to it every once in a while. It kind of gives me, like, Tenebrae vibes. I don't know if it's another pretentious movie. It's a part of, like, Italian horror. Mm-hmm. I love the soundtrack for that movie as well. That one's a bit more, like, synthetic, where this movie kind of has, like, the organ more. But I love this story through and through, honestly. I think it's, like, such a tasteful perspective on something like cannibalism, which is, you know, back in like the 80s and 90s, that was like, you know, if a movie was coming out like that, you know, a horror movie, it was like, you know, it was sensational, you know. It's like, it's almost hard to contextualize it, or at least for me, because I don't watch that many horror movies.
It was definitely a time period where it was like,
it was shock value.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, look how horrible this is. Whereas this focused a lot more on the inner turmoil.
Mm-hmm. That what it actually means to eat another human being.
Yeah, it's not like she goes out once a month and kills. Is she kind of every so often loses control of herself, and is horrified by it. Like, we didn't mention it because it wasn't really relevant to the plot, but when Adrian dies at the end of the movie and we see a chunk of his leg missing, Justine believes that she was in her sleep or in a half-awake state, killed him and ate his leg, and just was horrified by it. And they definitely... It was a new kind of cannibalism. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, because, like, in her mind, yeah, like, she did it, like, blacked out, you know?
Yep.
She believes that, you know, whether or not it was from, like, alcohol from the night before, or just in, like, some, like, fury of, like, desire, you know, like... She, like, mentally blocked out her inhibitions and just ate him. And, you know, she's yelling at him, you know, like, why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you hit me? You're, like, you know, because she knows, you know, he could easily win a fight against her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a relatively fit guy, you know. He's relatively fit. He's
a handsome man. Yeah. I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah. But then, you know, there's the reveal, you know, as she kind of lifts up the covers more and more that, you know, he has the stab wound in his back. And, you know, she finds the bloodied ski pole. And eventually that kind of trail like leads her across the room to see that Alexia is in the corner and she's covered in blood.
Just gaming.
Gaming.
She is.
Yeah, she is.
And of course at this point, like, Alexia is kind of in that state where her inhibitions are kind of blacked out.
She's dazed.
Yeah. She is not herself. She's not there. She's not conscious, really.
Justine has to shower with her, which is another scene I don't care for.
I don't mind that scene.
You know what? I didn't hate it. I just kind of.
I think there's a certain level of disconnect. Honestly, not even disconnect. I would say like it's just like a connection with her sister where she knows that she has to care for her, and you know she's like, you know, at that point like they've seen worse things together. They've killed people together.
They've peed together. Yeah,
they've peed together on the rooftop. You know,
I didn't mind it because it wasn't sexual in any nature.
Yeah, I guess it was more part of a pattern of them being like, yo, let me wax my sister.
It's also a more objective view of the human body that most Europeans have.
I guess you're right.
American viewership is much more puritanical, you know.
It's just so cold here in New England. We don't take off our clothes except to have sex.
It's not even that, you know, like us Americans, we think going to like a nude beach is like a very weird thing to do.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
It's just Americans are very like driven away from like the human body. It's, you know, it's just a cultural thing. Mm-hmm. It's like going to a sauna.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My impression is pretty simple. I had trouble watching it and felt stupid afterwards.
Tragic.
Yeah.
This was not my strength.
That shit blows.
Carter was like, bring your A game, and then I started watching it and I was like,
I hate this.
I was like, ugh. And normally I'm not like that. I don't know. This movie just really did not agree with me. And not in the way of like, oh, it's too gory. No, I honestly wasn't bothered by that. It just, maybe I'll rewatch it another day.
I think you'll quite enjoy it when rewatching it. But
just watch it 2 or 3 more times.
You will, yeah, you'll like it.
Maybe I'll watch it with Carter, where he's just like, "You're watching it, right?
Stay awake."
Yeah, honestly, Ashley's never struggle to pay attention to things when we watch movies together. But she falls asleep like nobody's business. It's like watching a movie with my dad. Is she'll pick the
Who do you think I got
big
the habit from?
big reclining chair, put her feet up, and like 10 seconds later, I'll see her in the full robotic power down mode where like.
If it's not,
And it's the Sex and the City. It's like 30-minute episodes. It's not even.
I've already seen this. Listen, the sad part is like I make fun of my dad for doing this every single night. Like,
Yeah.
It used to be a lot worse than it is now, but I used to just throw things at him. Well, he wouldn't wake up when I said, hey, unless I got really loud. But then I was like, oh, if I throw things at him, he also doesn't wake up.
Yeah. So don't worry, we'll put it on the website. But Bobby, I'm about to show you an image.
I have all of them.
Yeah, of when Ashley
I'm not absolutely
fell asleep during a Sex and the City marathon, and Kate and I decided to see what we could put on Ashley before she woke up.
I was knocked. To be fair,
I'm glad you guys just take pictures of me when I fall asleep. You never mess with me.
To be honest, like,
Well, because you're always like, oh wait, when we did the MASH thing, you were still awake. You just had your eyes closed. Actually, let me show you. Viewers are gonna hear me on Bobby's mic. This is where we start getting wacky with it.
The saxophone.
Yeah, tuck the saxophone under her arm. She didn't wake up, so we put it closer so it looked like she was playing it. Had our fun with that, and then the guitar. The guitar, first of all, wasn't what woke her up. It was me moving her arm so that it was resting on the neck of the guitar that woke her up.
I didn't think I was that much of a dead sleeper, but apparently I am.
You were we were stacking stuff on you. You were asleep and not even stirring. It's like if we couldn't see your chest, I might have actually been worried that you stopped breathing.
I was dead sleep.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what Ashley does whenever we watch a movie. And
It's literally happened twice.
If she can't express her ADHD by not paying attention, then she just powers down. It's wild.
Oh man! After this, I gotta tell you about the most recent date I went on, which
Okay.
was really bad.
You can tell. We'll cut it if
I'll
it's
cut
not
it, I'll
funny.
cut it.
Oh yeah, we can't see any of that. Anyway, so I think we've reached the Joseph DeStasio Memorial Line
shit, we
highlight.
still have to do
Why
this.
don't you guys give what you think it's going to be?
Oh, mine has
I'm
a derogatory
pretty-
word in mine.
Okay, I know
Oh.
which one yours is.
Okay, but that's definitely not mine.
All right,
okay.
Bobby, you go second because I feel like you can bleep yourself
Oh,
or
okay.
simply not say the word.
Oh shoot! What is it again? I didn't write it down.
You
like
didn't
a
write it
dummy.
down?
No, because
All
it
right,
was
well,
in
Bobby's
grade.
turn.
Wait, no, I can do it. She goes, I requested a girl as the. Oh, okay, I'll do the setup. So, Adrian bursts into Justine's room and she's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm your roommate." And she goes, "I requested a girl." And he goes, "They gave you a beep instead."
Derogatory term for gay man.
Yes, thank you. That's it.
I love this line so much.
What is it?
It's also an Adrian line. Stealing of burgers fucked up, even for me.
God, that's so much better than mine.
That's a good one. That is
That's
a
so
really
much
good
better
one.
than mine.
What is yours?
Mine was she's like trying to cut the wax off of her, and Justine's like, "You'll circumcise me."
You're right. That's a good one too. I love how Carter's like, you guys are all gonna have the same ones as
Well,
me.
I mean,
Well, this guy-
Bobby's like hyping it up, and I thought that he had it, but his was better.
I just love the stealing a burger is fucked up, even for me, just because it's contextualized by the fact that she put the burger in her pocket,
pocket!
and it wasn't like normal hamburger burger.
It was
like
patty.
a gravy burger.
Yeah.
You know, it was like ones that you would get at like high school lunch.
It's
so like
soaked
it's
her
like
pocket.
dripping. Yeah, like
Can we also talk about how she reached into? She didn't just pick one off the top. She dug her hand
Yeah, I had
that in
this
my notes
entire
is-
thing and grabbed it.
If I were the girl behind her, I would have been like, what the fuck is wrong with
Yeah,
you?
I also would have been like, what?
I'm like, I steal plenty of food, and I don't think that's okay.
See, I don't think if I was the person behind them, I don't think I could say that. I think I would probably do like an expletive. I'd just be like, "What the fuck?" Like,
Yeah,
like-
I think
but I don't
I
think
would
I
do that.
could confront that person
No.
because I think I would be slightly afraid of them.
I think I would
It's
go
a
to the
power
person
move.
behind the bar and be like, you need to switch that out right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't. Switching it out. Yeah, I thought
Like, we
I thought
need
you were
new
gonna
burgers
say.
over here.
I thought you were gonna say to rat on them because
No.
I wouldn't want to rat on them either because
No.
clearly if someone's doing that, they're desperate.
Yeah, no. Like, I would
If
not.
someone's handling the burgers with their hands, you know.
Listen, she's stealing food. I get it. We're all hungry. Like, that's fine. It's the fact that she stuck her hand that bothers me, and I need new burgers to get one.
She really did like dig in there.
Yeah.
And like,
Like, it's not that there was no other options. She could have quickly grabbed one out top,
right one off the top.
and it would have been less noticeable.
It would have been more inconspicuous.
Right. She probably wouldn't have been caught.
I just would have liked her to use the damn tongs, drop in her
yeah.
pocket, sure.
But I just love the shot where, you know, the cash register or the cashier is like, you know, wanting to ring it up, and they're like, I have to see what it is in order to ring it up, and then it cuts to a shot that's just of her pocket as the burger is soaking the lab coat.
And then she throws it away.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it presumably struck her with how fucking weird it was.
Yeah.
I also like the even for me line,
Yeah.
because at that point he had only established, like, being gay as a trait. So we're supposed to imply that, like, man, look how fucked up he is. He's gay, but he won't even steal a burger. That's low.
That's where the comedy comes
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, you're right. But the comedy is re-looking at it and joking about it together. I guess that's the point. Maybe that's the intention there.
So I know I've told Bobby this story. I maybe told you,
Maybe.
definitely haven't told the audience this, but in around Thanksgiving one year at UMass, there was, as with, I imagine, most college, they have like a Thanksgiving themed meal where they'll serve you gravy, cranberries, stuff like that, turkey, mashed potatoes. Most of those things I can eat. Can't eat the stuffing, can't eat the gravy,
Yeah.
but God, do I love turkey, mashed potatoes. I like my beans, roast carrots, green beans.
Oh, okay.
And she made a face. And
Beans at
I
Thanksgiving?
blanked. I just couldn't think of the color. Anyway, so I'm going through. I'm having the blast, and by the way, this happened in 2 consecutive years.
Yeah.
So the first year, I go up and I go, everything but the stuffing, please, and give them the old grin. And the woman does turkey, mashed potatoes, and I can tell she's like robotically moving, and I go, just no stuffing, a little bit louder. And she goes to the stuffing. She has everything I want on the plate. And she starts scooping the stuffing. Not just scooping it, but like really trying to load that shit up on the spoon.
A hefty serving.
Yeah, really just trying to get the most out of it. And I go at roughly this volume in a crowded dining hall. I go, no stuffing, no stuffing, no stuffing, no stuffing. And like there's a moment as she's starting to turn the spoon where I just like, I have the equivalent of going limp in a car crash where I'm just like, the damage is done. Like just let's limit how much this hurts. And like she just dumps it all over everything. I can't eat any of it. And I go, thanks, and I walk away, and I'm like getting, there's like a small section of potatoes, I'm sprinkling salt on it, and people are coming up to me and going, yo man, I saw that, that's fucked up. And I'm like, I know. He's like, I don't think they speak great English. And I'm like, yeah, but if someone like,
If someone's yelling no at you.
it's the same word in Spanish. If they're yelling that with increasing volume, I would stop what I'm doing to try to pick up from context. And then the second year, it was like a turkey sandwich, kind of the same concept.
Yeah.
I go, okay, I'd love a turkey sandwich with no bread on it. And he goes, oh, I can't do that. And I go, can you just put the bread on the side? And he goes, yeah. And he puts the bread down and scoops the stuff on it. And then goes, oh, whoops. Oh, that's okay.
No, it's
And I go,
not.
you don't get to say that. I'm like, you might as well keep this plate. This is useless to me now, but it's okay. Glad to hear you forgave yourself, man. I was like, thanks, man. And I just set it down next to the model.
It would
food.
be different if Carter was like, "Hey, can I get the sandwich, but with 8 pieces of bread, please?"
Yeah.
And the guy would be like, "That's absurd." What?
I get why they are like, no, we can't give you 8 pieces of bacon for this. I get why. I get that, but not wanting something is absurd.
Yeah. Or refusing someone when they don't want anything. It's like, you have to
I
have
have
it.
to give it to you. I'm like, really? If I just throw it on the
You
floor,
don't
are
have
we all
to give
gonna be
me
happy?
anything. I could walk away right
Yeah.
now.
See, I would be like, it's an allergy. If you give it to me, I'll throw it in your face.
Yeah. I have so many of those stories. You have no idea how many days I walked into the UMass dining hall and the gluten-free section had like carrots, peas,
always carrots.
rice, and then a blank spot. And I'm like, well, good to see that we're leading the nation in dining, huh?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
so
back on track.
Final ratings. I gave this 8 fingers up. I would include both thumbs, but those are not fingers, so it's just eight fingers up.
I gave it a 3.
A 3?
I told you I really didn't like it. I didn't.
That was the same you gave Megan, wasn't it?
Yeah. You not having fun during it is not the same as, it being rating it poorly.
But I didn't get the movie until after the movie ended when I looked it up and said, "Oh, I missed a lot of this stuff."
You didn't even retroactively decide it was a point better than Megan. Is looking back on it, you're still happy with that rating.
I actually changed my rating because I originally gave it a 2.
Jesus Christ,
I struggled getting through it. Okay, watch. I'll rewatch it and be like, wow, I missed so much. This is the greatest movie ever. But like right now, it wasn't for me. And not even for horror elements. I didn't think it was a good movie. And anyways though, I gave it a 3 severed finger snacks.
I would give it a strong 8.5 rabbit kidneys.
Nice.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So, what are we watching next week, Ashley?
We're watching The Offering. You can find it on Apple TV for a price or Vudu
For a price.
The price is your soul, unfortunately.
Anything else to wrap up the episode?
You can find this movie on Netflix.
If they recommend watching it, I might rewatch it. But with that, I guess thank you for listening. Bobby, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have anything you want to plug? Any recommendations?
Recommendations.
Any tips?
On another Ducogno movie that I personally haven't seen, but I'm looking forward to seeing. It is out. Is Titan.
I think the main girl is in it.
The actor who plays Justine.
Yeah.
I know Ducogno has used that same actor before in a previous film.
Yeah, she's in Titan.
Oh, she is? Nice.
Yep.
All I know about the movie is a lady fucks a car.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm
Whack.
okay. Now I'm intrigued and I want to see it.
I really want to see it. I don't know why I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Time to go on
Usually
solarmovies.pe.
Usually that's all it takes is is a woman fucking a car. All right.
Yeah, nothing to plug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, last
great.
time. I guess we'll plug David's Twitch thing again. Might as well.
Did you put the link in the show?
Last
notes?
time I did, yeah.
Good. All right, cool. Well, thank you all for listening. If you like what you heard, please, leave us a rating, maybe a review if you feel so inclined. Actually, please do. Appreciate it. And you can find us wherever you get podcasts, but also on YouTube and horrorsucks.com and on Instagram at Horror Sucks Podcast. And that's it.
Stay spooky. Sorry. I don't know if you're going to leave that pause in, but I
am now.
answered a little textaroony.
All right, Horror Sucks is brought to you by Wild Thing Media. Editing done by Ashley and